Here with Phil, Midnight Poet. Is it the Midnight Poet or just Midnight?
It was originally the Midnight Poet, and I think it's become just Midnight now, so I just go with Midnight.
Yeah. Doing an interview. I have to name this series. I think I want to do with like hot brew conversations. I don't know, because it's spawned from the thing that B started. So just kind of want to have a talk about poetry and the community we've got building here, and kind of how you you pretty much started. Like me and Sifo were talking the other day, and we were like, Sifo and I know each other because of you. Like there's a lot of like within Black communities, like it's really easy to trace back where like all of the roots start to cross, because there's not a lot of Black art in places like Colorado Springs. So it's really easy to kind of trace back that lineage. Like if you hadn't started Poetry 719 and then here, like there wouldn't have been an event for me and Sifo to meet at. Right. So that's really cool. So I just want to kind of get on record with you and kind of talk about, what you think about poetry and how it started, why you wanted to start, a community of poets in Colorado Springs of all places. So just first off, just tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself.
Phllip J. Curtis, a.k.a. the Midnight Poet. I just said don't use the, I never used it, but it's okay. But I mean, that's what I'm originally used to. But for me, poetry started in middle school. I was in an art class, and the teacher was Miss Gynakopoulos. I will never forget her name, because everybody, they tease you when you had her as a teacher, because her name sounded like a disease. We're kids. Anyway, so in art class we had to draw a picture and write a poem. And the picture I drew the name of the poem was Childhood Thoughts. And the picture I drew a picture of a little boy thinking of himself rich and famous with cars and bikes and motorcycles. I didn't have no girls in it because I was too young, not thinking like that at the point. But anyway, and then I drew, and the picture was then and now. And I drew a picture of that same little boy as a bum on an unemployment line, which is interesting, that being the first poem I wrote, because I work for the welfare system now. So to me, not only the things I ventured off in life, but from the first poem, it all became full circle, so to speak. So I like that. But I moved here in Colorado February 10th, 2006. I moved here on my birthday because I had visited here before, but I wanted a fresh new start from some of the things I went through. And I chose, my option was going back east, Texas or here. And this was a bigger challenge, so I came here. And when I got here, there wasn't much poetry here in Colorado Springs. There was a spot every Monday or every other Monday in Manitou Springs. Karen, I can't remember her last name, I can't pronounce it actually. And Rob C., he used to come from Denver and host this poetry event every other Monday. But, with his time and the weather from Denver to here, he couldn't keep it going. So he asked me if I wanted to keep it going. I was like, yeah, I would. Because in the meantime, I was just sitting back. I was attending, but I wanted to sit back and just listen and see how everything was going here, and what this poetry scene was here in Colorado, especially for my community. And there wasn't nothing going on for our community at all. But eventually, from there, I started. The first poetry venue I had here in Colorado Springs was School Crossing. That's right up there on Maysland. It's a shop for where the teachers get their supplies and things like that. And they had a coffee shop, but in the basement they had like a large room that they wasn't using for at all. So I was like, hey, can I do some poetry here? Blah, blah, blah. I introduced it, say what I wanted to do, and they agreed. And I think the first night it was a good 40 people.
Wow.
And which was cool because I really didn't know anybody here yet. But I guess Hmm?
When was this?
This was in 2007. It was in 2007. And it was okay. It was okay, but it wasn't enough for me because I wasn't getting my people there in the seats. So I think I got discouraged a little bit, and I started to venture out to Denver, the Speak Out. That was a venue back in that started up probably in 2005 or before I got there, and it had my people were there, and it just felt so good because when you're around your own comfort zone and with your own people, you can express what's really bothering you, as opposed to if you're in a certain circle, they're going to get offended by facts.
Right. You have to self-censor.
Right, exactly, and that wasn't good. But going out to Denver to the Speak Out was fine for a while, and of course, boom, the weather flipped. Couldn't get out there anymore. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna be in Colorado Springs. Denver already created their name. Colorado Springs is their name. So there was a gentleman that worked at Perkins off Powers, and he was the manager at Powers Perkins. Excuse me, Village Inn. And he enjoyed poetry. He wrote poetry, but because he was a manager and it was there at night, he wasn't able to come to any events. So he offered to bring poetry to Perkins. Village Inn. I don't know why I keep saying Perkins. So he offered to bring it there, and there was a glass window that he could close off, and then that's where we would have poetry there. And that's when the black community started to come in a little bit more.
That's awesome. So you started because you wanted to, our people, so Black poets specifically. How did that lead to Poetry 719, and you met Christopher Bees, who's now running a lot of stuff with Ashley. So how did you meet them? Or Chris?
Bees I met, I think when I dropped a CD in 2010, I think that's when I met him. And him and Luke came by, and this was downtown at an art gallery. And I guess he was impressed by the melanin in the room, and he just gravitated towards it, like, where are you people hiding? Where do y'all come from? And Stacy Dyson, my mentor, was there at the time, and we would just put on some nice little shows. And my buddy, who came from Texas,
What was his name?
oh, it jumped out. His name just jumped out of my head. Anyway. Well, you were there.
I remember, yeah.
So because he was stationed here at that time.
Oh, okay.
So we put on a nice little show and everything. We put it on down at the art gallery, and then the next night we put it on at the Citadel Mall.
Right.
So which was cool, because then a lot of people came because like, okay, I didn't know there was a black community doing these things. So I, just tried to venture off and find spots. Trying to find black-owned spots was kind of tough. Let's see. I noticed one thing when I got here is that Colorado Springs was somewhat young, and it's a military town. And if it didn't have a beat to it, and if it wasn't downtown and popping, they didn't want to come. So, at one point I was at this bar off airport. It was called Alumni. And I was able to do a couple shows there. We do it every 2 weeks. And the bad thing about it, being that it was consistent, but where the venue was going to be at, that was never consistent. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So it would change.
It would change often. So you had to go in the independent and check it out. There's a bar on Circle. There's a gentleman that used to own the bar on Circle, and he he had a band, and he invited. I asked him, he black on. I asked him if I could do a poetry venue there some nights on slow nights. So we'd move it there. We do the alumni. We do the village inn. So it was always all around the place. We'd go back to Manitou. A lot of times when we first started on Sunday nights in Manitou Springs, there was, I can't remember the name, the Ancient Mariner. They would practice their music, and they allow you to spit your poetry over the music they were doing. And that's how you was able to hit the stage.
Okay. Right. So now that you've been in Colorado for a long time, you see the scenes really growing and kind of thriving in Colorado Springs. So what do you think of where we're at currently? Like, what do you think of the growth, and what would you like to see in the future?
The growth has been amazing in the last couple of years, because we have Black Voices Matter every other month,
Can you come later here?
which it's I like the audience because doing it every other month, it keeps everybody thirsty, wanting to come back and check it out. And I think with the community that we're touching, it'll grow even more. There should be some sort of staple history of anything that Black people in Colorado Springs touch, in my opinion, because a lot of people don't know what we do, whether it's poetry or arts or owning stores, whatever the case may be. So it needs to be documented so that people that come afterwards, after we move out somewhere else, they'll be encouraged. Like, it can be done here. It has been done here, and they can see how it was done. So right now, I love where it's going now. I love seeing the audience. That's why when I host, for example, when I host Black Voices Matter, and there's so many Black folks in the audience, I'm happy, and I bring the energy that I'm happy, but at the same time, behind the happiness, there's tears that you'll never see, because, like, man, from 2, 3, 4 people sitting around a room to 75 people now, it's like, man, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, the first event that I read at was the Black Voices Matter, and it was after. Like, the reason I started writing poetry was in response to the police killings, Black people getting shot for no reason. So I was just really scared, really angry, and just kind of needed to express myself. So the first event being a Black Voices Matter, just being in a room full of Black people, like, it was that release that you didn't even know you need. Like, when you get a drink of water, you didn't know how thirsty you were. And when I got in front and just looked out and saw just a crowd of people that looked like me looking back, like, there's really no words that I can use to describe just the kind of comfort in a room full of strangers being comfortable.
Exactly.
So
Because when you're in front of an audience of, say, Black people, you have more of their attention, and they're paying attention to you because they can relate to where you're coming from, as opposed to if you were in an audience full of people of other colors that are not familiar with your background. When you say certain things, you can sense when people cross their legs, they like shake their head. So I was doing a piece at what is now the Gold Room, and a Caucasian gentleman, I mean, I could feel his eyes just pierce in on me while I was on stage, and he walked out afterwards. It was real talk, but I guess he couldn't take it, so to speak.
didn't want to hear it.
He didn't want to hear it, couldn't take it. But other people of color, they could relate to it, and it made sense to them. And it's not in a sense of trying to cause division amongst people, but more awareness amongst people. And I think that's what Black Voices Matter does. That's what poetry does in itself as a nutshell. No matter, size, shape, form you come from, you're gonna learn something from somebody spitting.
Yeah, that's true. And everyone brings a different story. Even if we have, that commonality, that common experience, that shared experience of being a woman or being black, like everyone's story is different. But there's things within that story that you can relate to. Yeah. So talk about your poetry. Like, what type of poetry do you like? What type of poetry do you write? Like, why do you choose the topics that you do choose? Like you've written about you've got the poem about the woman being sexy. You've got a poem about a poem only wants to be heard. Like you've got maybe I don't know like more than like I don't think you write about black stuff, but that's not all. That's not what anybody all that write about. But you've got a very broad range of topics that you kind of touch and um,
It,
so talk about that a little bit.
I believe, for example, I look at writing a poetry because I love music. I believe presenting a formula of poetry is like creating an album,
Mm.
and a good artist will have a range of music, different types of range of music on their album, so it could reach abroad. For example, there's certain artists that I listen to before I perform. I'll listen to Michael. I'll listen to Buju. I'll listen to Bob. I'll listen to Jay Z. I'll listen to New Edition, all in order before I perform. And I'll listen to Wyclef John. Wyclef John was the first African American rapper to to do a concert at Radio City Music Hall, and he had to do a lot to get through that door. But what I appreciate about him, he has range. He has an amazing range. He's done songs with Kenny Rogers, um, just countless people you wouldn't expect him
Right.
to collaborate with. So when I look at the audience, I don't know who's going to be there, but usually before an event, I'll speak to almost everybody, as many people as possible, and in that way, I'm gonna get a feel of who you are, or how you are, and what I could bring at you. And in that way, I could just expand the horizons and like, boom. For the next 3 minutes, I'm gonna have your undivided attention. So I need to speak about this, which is universal to anybody.
Right.
Because here's another thing too. When practicing to perform, you want I think it's a good suggestion. This is what I do. You want to keep in mind who you're performing to. So, for example, if you had a piece, if you were doing a feature, and you always had a start off piece, you want to practice that piece as if you were talking to a child. You want to practice that piece as if you were talking to someone in your age group. You want to practice that piece as if you were performing it in front of in an old folks' home. So that brings your pace, pitch, power. Boom, 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 and it brings your range. So you, boom, I need to talk to you in this line. I'm gonna hit these high school students in this line. I'm gonna hit these older people in this line. So I write more universal. I like to think I write more universal. Why I have so many pieces, as opposed to be structured or being predictable, writing one theme. Because then you want to have that element of surprise. It's like boom, you want, and I've been writing and performing for so long. I don't want to write the same things
Yeah.
because I have to like okay. For example, when I get writer's block, I'll watch a documentary on anything I don't even care about, just to learn about it, get my perspective of it, and write on it.
Um, so who are some of your favorite poets? Like when you want inspiration, who do you turn to?
Um, if I was gonna go to Well, one person I would turn to is my cousin. He was a high school guidance counselor, and he was a performance poet. He used to perform at New Eureka back in New York.
Oh, wow.
So he passed away now, but his voice, his range, his topics, his ideas, I honed into him a lot, And there's a piece that he wrote about racial tension. He wrote it in the early 70s. And I love that piece. And the sad thing about that piece, it still relates today. So before he passed away, we rewrote that piece and entitled it Cousins.
Mm.
So he's my inspiration. Stacy Dyson was my mentor when I got here to Colorado. She's an inspiration. And if I want to sit back and just take it all in, so to speak, I'm gonna go to Gil. I'm gonna go to Gil, and I'm gonna go to Langston.
Oh, so Gil Scott Heron
Oh yeah.
and Langston Hughes.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna go to them.
Yeah.
And also too, I can do, I can I can perform in the voice of Martin Luther King Jr. And I respect his how he was able to speak to the masses, but at the same time, I like the power of Malcolm. Always loved the power of Malcolm,
Yeah.
and I try to take how he got everybody's attention within that first 1-2 line. I try to adapt that too from Malcolm. Malcolm was a bad boy, and sometimes I can never. I was so much in awe of Malcolm even to this day that I could never mimic him. I could never do one of his speeches, but I could adapt some of the qualities that he has to deliver it to the audience now. So it's the same. Malcolm did his thing, Martin did his thing, Gil did his thing, my cousin did his thing. So Colorado Springs is doing their thing now, but it's all in rotation for everybody to grow. Someone's going to leave a seed, and it's going to keep on growing. Man.
Yeah, I think that just goes back to what we started with is, that, like within the Black community, you can kind of trace the roots back very easily to what allowed this sequence of events to happen. Like I'm writing poetry now because I have a space that I feel comfortable in. Without that, I would not be going out to open mics. I wouldn't be focusing on poetry as much as I am now, because of that seed. And I'm going to pay that forward. I actually just put my application in for grad school, so I'm going to start that in fall. I'll be a teacher eventually.
Nice.
And pay that forward. Be a Black person in front of a classroom to inspire someone like me that never had someone that looks like them.
Right, exactly.
In front of the classroom to know. So I want to run back to kind of the history of Poetry 719. What are some of the pitfalls you've run into in trying to build a poetry community? So, like obviously it kind of fell off. You went with here, and now Poetry 719 is thriving again. But what challenges do you run into? So first, talk about how you started it, and then
Poetry 719. It's funny. There's always a callback for different groups. So when it had died out here a little bit here in Colorado Springs, it was me, Bees, Luke, a couple others. We'd drive out to Denver to the Speak Out spot. So one night we were driving up there, and I had an old beat up Oldsmobile. We used to struggle to get up there anyway. But we come to a stoplight, and someone would get out the car and scrape off the ice off the car. It was just brutal. It was brutal. And it was like 7 of us in this Oldsmobile, but boom, it was okay. We kept each other warm, just coming back and spitting. But anyway, one night we was driving up there, and usually when we got up there, like, oh, the 719 crew is here, like, and when they would let us do, go in order, so to speak. And so one night when we was going up there, I was like, hey, when they say 719, we're gonna holler out. Our callback is gonna be we drive north.
Uh,
So, so when they said 719, we're like we drive north, and it just kind of it was. I think that night it became more than just these guys and these people coming up there. It it was saying we drive north. Let them know we had a passion and a love for this art, and we'll go that extra mile to voice our art. But at the same time, it got to the point where we were trying to do certain things here in Colorado Springs, and we had asked Denver artists to be the feature, and I didn't like that after a while because we got enough talent here. We have enough black people here to carry our own load and have our own features. Um, a lot of the challenges here was different venues, but probably just believing in us.
yeah.
No, you can't do that, or they'll open their venue up to us, but it'll be like 9, 10 o'clock. Folks are not going to come out 9, 10 o'clock either on a Saturday night. They're not going to come out. They're not going to come out. But we struggled through it and kept it going. And in our first year anniversary, we was at the Village Inn, and I guess people started hearing about it, and the Gazette came out.
This is before social media, like
Yeah.
no Facebook, no
No
Twitter.
Facebook, no Twitter, no nothing like that.
Word still spread.
Yeah, the word was able to spread, and the Gazette came out, and I still have that article. And the lady stated in the article, something along the lines in a cold but quiet, but voices were heard in the corner of this room, and it was just beautiful, man. It's like, and then I mean, the some of the people from Denver, they came out to support. So it was like, okay, we're doing something good here.
Yeah.
We're doing something good. And then in between that time, we started here, and here's show first event was 9, 10, 11. I'll never forget that because it only makes sense. September 10th, 2011.
Okay.
So we started to that up, but it was good, but it wasn't my people. It wasn't for my people. My people wouldn't come all the time, so we had to do. Then that's when Beast came up with this idea of Black Voices Matter after a while, and he's like, "Hey, I want to do this event, and it's Black Voices Matter, all black artists, performing on the mic." And he ran it by me. I'm like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do this." And then we started that, and it's been growing since. Between Bees and Ashley, they have made this thing multiply many times over.
Yeah, they are putting in the footwork.
They're putting
They
in the
are
footwork.
doing
Putting
ridiculous things with this scene, and it's great to see.
Exactly. So the first day of the day Poetry 719 actually was created. Poetry 719 was created around January 7th, 2011. So, and we allowed for people to post their poetry, post their events, and just trying to encourage one another with what you've been writing, and hey, do you know any venues that we could perform at, and things like that. But I'm not always that social media savvy.
Yeah.
So with Bees and Ashley doing the social media stuff now is growing even more. This coming week on the 19th, we're going to be in a new venue that holds up to 200 persons. So we have a meeting on Tuesday evening to to do the fine print of that, and that's for the black owned business.
Nice.
So we've been downtown, we've been north of Academy. This is going to be south of Academy, where a lot of our people live, and so it's easier for them to get to. You know, if they had to take the bus, they could get there. If they have to walk, it's within a few blocks.
Right.
So it's expanding. It's expanding, and I like that.
I just the last Black Voices Matter down in the gallery. Like I love the gallery as a venue, but it was just
It's
it
packed.
was too packed. Like people were just standing in the entry and
Yeah.
standing all the way in the back. There's weren't enough chairs.
No.
Um, so yeah, it's good that it'll be in a spot with enough seating.
And then you need the AC. You need the fans going in the gallery in the wintertime, and you can't hear half the people
Right.
sometimes. So it is a challenge. We appreciate them, love them for it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a great spot. But it's the Black Voices Matter event has just grown so big that it's outgrown that particular venue. You mentioned the callback. Poetry 719. We drive north. I want to and here has here.
Right.
Why callbacks? Like, how did that start? What's the importance of a callback?
The importance of a callback is recognition. You're being recognized for the work that you put in. So, like I said, when I mentioned 719 before, yeah, we got a 719, the folks from the 719, but when we started our own callback of We Drive North, we were being recognized for our passion, our love, and what we wanted to do and make it grow. Now here it still has a callback, and 719 we had to change
Yeah,
our
we do
callback.
stuff.
So our callback now 719 we do stuff, and I like that even more than We Drive North, of course, because we don't have to drive north anymore.
Yeah.
We do stuff says boom, we're not just poetry. It's not just poetry that we do. We're hitting different businesses. We're hitting different groups of people. We're recognizing them. They're recognizing us, and we're showing the love back and forth to each other. So to build a community, build support. Because when things hit the Black community, we have to have some sort of response to it. And the response that we have is like, okay, we got Poetry 719, we got My Black Colorado, boom, boom, boom. And it makes us grow. It makes us grow. Even things that's not sitting well within our community, we could mount together and stand up and speak against as a union, so to speak, in one unity.
Yeah. Um, what would you like to see in the next 5 years for our scene?
I would honestly like to see a venue of our own. I Granted, I appreciate helping other venues grow and they opening their doors to us. But if we had a building with Poetry 719 outside of it, that would make me happy because it would say Poetry 719 on the front, but once you walk in that door, so many things could happen, man. You know, you can encourage a child, you can encourage anyone, not just through writing, but spending time with them. It could be like a source for an after school center, whatever the case may be. But it's something in the community for the community, and it'll stand the test of time. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, that'd be dope. It's a consistent venue for workshops, for community outreach, after school stuff. Growing the next generation of poets, which is also something you've invested a lot of time in, right? Like,
Yeah.
you spend a lot of time with youth poets.
Yeah, right now they're working with them. They're going to Vegas in July for Brave New Voices, and it's nice working with them because the thing about it, okay, they're going to compete, but you want them to come back with life lessons.
Yeah.
So it's not all about the competition. For example, me, I don't even compete, but I'm gonna go with them and encourage them along the way, and boom, they want them to come with positive life lessons
Yeah.
coming back. And another thing I would like to see as far as with Brave New Voices it would be nice to see some of um, people of color getting involved in that more
As the students or as mentors?
as the students. The mentors are people of color.
Okay.
Majority of the mentors are people of color. As far as the students go, it's very rare there's people of color as students performing. They because growing up in New York or growing up in a big city, some people get handcuffed to where they live, and they don't never venture out.
Sure.
So Brave New Voices. It was in San Francisco this year. It's in Vegas. Um, so for them to venture out of, say, Colorado for a week and just see life in a different perspective, and then not only that, you're getting people of color from the East Coast, the West Coast, in Texas, in Boston. So for young people of color to see their contemporaries, they're like, oh man, there's so much more to grow. There's so much more I can learn. There's so much I don't know. I'm encouraged because this person that lives over here, they're doing so much, and I'm afraid to do it. But boom, as a person of color, I can do it because they did it. So that's what I would like to see. But then again, it goes back to having teachers. Like that's one of the things you're in Denver. So that's how it works in the whole community. It comes full circle. So if I say, hey Mike, I want people of color to start writing so they could be part of Brave New Voices and travel and get the experience. You being a teacher, that's an outlet where you can help. So it's really growing the community. And the thing about growing the community, it could be some person in the corner standing that said something, and boom, from that little thing, they say, hey, I know there's a place such and such and such, and from that they grow and meet different people. Love it, man. Love it. Yeah, love it.
Right. So there's a kind of a history of two groups in Colorado Springs. So kind of Poetry 719, and then you helped create Here Here. How did that come about? The Here Here.
Here came about. It was me. It was me, Bees, Luke, Revo, and Mark. And it's funny. I have a poster in my home with the five of us um, on the poster because we started Here. Uh, the idea for Here was again to do community, um, and we were able to do it, but it wasn't the community that I wanted as a whole because I wanted there was always a need for people of color to be more involved, for their voices to be heard. They needed a space. So at one point in time, I broke away from Here. I've gone back because there's different opportunities that Here offers,
Sure.
as well as Poetry 719 offers, but eventually to somewhat get them on the same table, on the same playing field, if not the same playing field, that they could just learn from each other. Because in the end, it's still going to be community.
Right.
But there's one part of community that I have a passion to build, and there's one part of the community that I also want to build, but I could learn from it as well, and bring both sides back and forth. Because like I said before, when you perform, you want to perform in a range.
Sure.
So when you learn, you want to learn within a range as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. So yeah, we call you. Well, me and Sipo. I don't know if anyone else does. Me and Sipo have been calling you the Godfather of poetry. I think that's a better name than Midnight. I think that you should start going by the Godfather now.
Come, let me hear your poem. Let me give your approval.
Yeah. Just because you've been here so long, you've touched so many different communities, so many different artists, inspired so many different people. So just from me to you, brother, thank you.
Thank you, baby.
I appreciate it.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate you.
Thank you. Love
I
it, man.
appreciate, that you keep doing it. Um, I think it's beautiful to see, that you get to watch,
The
the
growth.
seeds of the fruition of the what you started, and you're a part of it still.
Yeah.
Obviously, you still host, you're still involved with youth groups, you're still doing everything you set out to do, and you get to see it. You get to see it grow. You get to see, the open mics, and you get to see Ashley and Bees and how they have, started doing their thing. And I can't imagine how gratifying that must be.
And true, because I spoke with them and like, y'all doing so much for Poetry 719, and I still want to be a part of it. So they keep me in contact with certain things they're doing. And for example, this Tuesday, the meeting for the event next Friday, they're not going to be there. They're not going to be able to be there. But now the community gets to see yet another face, and then eventually, you know, like when we're doing the May 4th event, the community gets to see your face. You know what I'm saying? So everybody has a hand in it, man. Everybody gets love. So it's not even it's not even about me. It's not about me. This is, I don't have any biological children, but this is my children. This is my children to see folks grow from spinning on tic-tac-toe to crazy metaphors now. That's sometimes I'll go to an event and just sit back and just listen because, man, it's like, wow, this is pretty, man. This is pretty.
So, with that, any last words? Anything you want to say to the people who read or hear, show up to any of the events that we're putting on?
Well, the simple last words I could say is we're going to keep on growing. And in order to see the growth and be part of the growth, go to the Facebook page, Poetry 719 on Facebook, the page, so you can continue to see the growth. Because not everybody's going to have an opportunity to hear this, or at the end they're like, man, what did they say earlier? Oh no, I remember they said Poetry 719 on Facebook, the page. Keep going there, see the events coming out, support, and so that down the line, when if we move to the left or move to the right, people will always come back. Poetry 719 started it. This is what it's at. Where it's going to be, and boom, they'll see that building one day, man. That's what I want to say. That building, because there was growing up in New York, there was always that community building, man. There was that community building, and that it was funny. I'm rattling now, but it's okay.
You're old. You can do that.
Yeah. Back in the day, the community center, they did swimming, they did arts and crafts and all that stuff. But and that was for the youth. But back in the day, like on Friday and Saturday night, they would put 5 speakers outside of the building, and it wasn't as crazy as it is today. And the older folks and the adults would party. So it was for the communities, Nothing was, no craziness, go smoking and all that, drinking and none of that was happening. None of that was happening. But and it's funny, I went back home 4 years ago, and I went back to that community center just to reminisce. And one of the girls that I had a crush on her when I was younger, Sue Hill. She lived next door to us growing up, and ironically, I was just in New York to visit Brooklyn. She was there. She works at a law office in Queens, but this was a Saturday afternoon. She was back in that community building that we grew up in, and just helping out. So it's really about, that's crazy. For 2 people who grow up in one spot, and then 35 years later, just end up and not living in the same city anymore, being in that spot that same day, That's close to your heart, man.
Yeah.
That's close to your heart. That's crazy. That's beautiful, man. That's what I love about it.
Well, thanks, Phil. Midnight. I appreciate your time, and yeah, I can't wait to get this up. I can't wait to watch it.
Okay, that's all. I thought it was just audio. It's filming. He's filming. Oh, my bad. I thought you were taking pictures. What's up?
That'll be a great way to end it.
So he was way over there. I was like, hey, yeah. Cool. That was fun, man.
Oh man.
The it's not 12. If you want, I could some of the flyers from the 2006, 2007. I could let y'all get some of those.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
I would love that.
yeah. I got a lot of flyers from other spots and venues here in Colorado Springs.